Welcome, everyone, to today's Leading in the Digital Era. As we continue Cybersecurity Awareness Month, today we're featuring an incredible panel of women who not only thrives in this challenging field, but also paving the way for future generations of leaders in cybersecurity. We're living in a time of the intersection of technology and security that has never been more critical. Cyber threats are rapidly evolving. As we address these challenges, it's more important to recognize that diversity in leadership is no longer just a nice to have, it's a necessity. Research shows that teams with diverse perspectives are better at solving complex problems, and cybersecurity is no exception. Today, we're privileged to hear from three extraordinary leaders who embody the essence of resilience, innovation, and empowerment in cybersecurity. These women not only overcome obstacles, they've shattered barriers. In a field that still faces gender disparity, these are role models who demonstrate that leadership in cybersecurity is not only defined by gender, but by vision, expertise, and determination. As we dive into today's discussion, we'll explore how these leaders are navigating the ever-changing landscape of cybersecurity. We'll address everything from the human element in cybersecurity to balancing innovation and protection to the changes and triumphs they face as women in leadership. I hope their stories inspire all of you, as they have with me, and with the next generation of women who will have been completely underrepresented to see how they have a place in this field too. So let's get going and first welcome a new member to the Institute for Digital Transformation, 𝗟𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Well, I appreciate you being here. Teresa is a VP and Associate CIO responsible for cybersecurity and IT at Texas Children's Hospital. Teresa leads a security program that balances innovation and patient care by embedding security within the organization. Teresa has transformed cybersecurity into a collaborative force that enhances operational efficiency. Under her leadership, Texas Children's achieved significant cybersecurity milestones, including industry-leading reductions in phishing vulnerability and cross-departmental buy-in for security initiatives. Teresa continues to champion Cybersecurity Foundation Innovation Healthcare and is a this year winner of the Inspire Orbi CISO of the Year Award. So congratulations on that, Teresa, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Rob. Glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
Next, I'd like to invite back to our show Maggie Dillon. Maggie is the CIO of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗵𝗁 and a strategic partner at 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. With over 15 years of expertise in business strategy, operations, cybersecurity, Maggie is a co-author of the #1 international bestseller book, Hack 2, Maggie, and is the founder of Empress Security Insights and has served clients across sectors including government, healthcare, and education. Maggie is also an advisor for the Executive Women Leadership Program at George Washington University and has deep expertise in recruitment and defense contractors like Lockheed Martin. Her personal passions include philanthropy, veteran outreach, and animal welfare. Welcome back, Maggie.
Good to be back. Thank you.
And then what rounds out our panel today is Christina Morello. Christina is the head of cybersecurity for my favorite football team, the Giants. Sorry, Jack. Enterprise. She's an enterprise information security leader who has built and matured security programs across multiple industries. With a strong focus on aligning security with business goals, she elevates organization security posture, reduces risk, and forges cross-functional collaboration. Christina is also a published author and thought leader in cybersecurity, known for innovation, accessible approach to information security and leadership. Welcome, Christina.
Thanks for having me.
So I think a good place for us to start off today would be, what brought the three of you into your fields of cybersecurity? So Maggie, would you mind kicking it off for this one?
Absolutely. I have such a unique story, as most cybersecurity professionals do. I did not go to college for that. I actually started out going to school for occupational therapy. I wanted to be an occupational therapist, but the bulk of I think skills I learned that have helped me get where I am today is I was an executive recruiter doing C-suite and board of director headhunting for 14 years in the IT and cybersecurity sector. So really soaking everything up like a sponge. I love strategy. I love leadership development and building teams and helping companies all the way through acquisition. And especially working with startup companies, I enjoy that a lot. And passion-wise, my heart's with the kids and the nonprofits and education. But it's been a journey and it's been a lot of fun. And there's a lot of times where I go to bed thinking, were those the right decisions? Do I know what I'm doing? And I think that's part of the process. So it's been a great time.
Thank you, Maggie. So, Christina, what got you involved and interested in cybersecurity?
So I have a pretty traditional background. I started my career, on the IT side, very, very technical, started as like a network administrator. Actually, I started all the way back on a help desk, doing technical support, then moved into like desktop support, then network administration, system administration, or both at the same time. And then I actually ended up in cybersecurity by accident. At the time, it wasn't necessarily called cybersecurity. It was more about IT security. And really, it was because I knew Active Directory very well as like a former, sysadmin and network admin. I knew Active Directory. I knew permissioning, and that got me the job here in New York City for a financial services firm on a trading desk doing IT security, right? So it was all around financial services. And my focus was actually identity and access management because of my background and my specialty. And then, I don't know what happened like 15 years later, right? On top of my like 15 years in IT, I just kind of stepped into the world of security and moved, we talk about shifting left, I kind of shifted right a little bit. I went from like identity and access management all the way to like security operations, incident response, enterprise architecture, and just kind of like my personal portfolio grew. So it was by accident, thanks to, being a techie. And yeah, I feel like I continue to find the new opportunities. Maybe it's not by accident. Maybe it's meant to be Kismet, but that's how I started.
Well, thanks for that, and I appreciate not only you in a man-dominated industry, you're in a man-dominated field as well, working for the Giants.
Mhm.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't make a nod to Jessica Campbell, who I think this year is the first professional NHL hockey coach, which is a big for women in sports. And as you are, I think the only woman CISO or head of cyber in the NFL currently. Is that correct?
There are a couple of us. Thankfully, I'm happy to say, I'm happy that I'm not the only. There are a couple of us. Yeah. I mean, we do need to, tally up the numbers, but there are a few. So we have representation, which is fantastic.
Good. Well, let's at least get to batting 500 in the NFL. So, Teresa, how about you? What brought you to cyber?
Sure. So it's a similar story in between Christina and Maggie. Without dating myself, multiple decades ago, cybersecurity wasn't a major, but I majored in management information systems with a minor in internal audit. And I started my career at an oil and gas company doing audits, risk assurance, and I was in the financial audit side first. Then we were implementing a significant ERP platform. Many of you all know SAP. So I moved over to our IT audit function and led that function for quite some time. And I got really interested in just technology, but not necessarily just technology alone, how it really improves business processes and allows organizations to meet their business goals. So then I had an opportunity with that organization to move from internal audit over to IT. And that was when they were standing up their IT security functions. At that time, I believe it was finally pulled out of infrastructure into its own domain. Had the chance to move into leadership roles across. I first started, Christina, in identity access management. Then I moved over to GRC, so leading that team, and then finally the Security Operations Center. And then a few years later, had an amazing opportunity to come to Texas Children's and move from the oil and gas industry over to healthcare, which I completely love the mission and the purpose and the pride that we have coming to healthcare. And that's how I started getting into cybersecurity. And I do want to say too, you don't necessarily have to start out technical. Right? A lot of things on cybersecurity and the experiences that you need is influential, storytelling, understanding the mission, circling it back to strategies. So I know we'll get into a little bit deeper, but that's kind of the journey of where I am today.
Thank you, Teresa. And I know recently with not only with your when you were also promoted to CIO as well at Texas Children's. And is that correct?
Yes, about 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to serve as their associate CIO, so very excited for that. Now I have a very broad perspective on all things technology and have the chance to truly embed cybersecurity practices within all functions of digital services.
So I can only imagine, with everybody here, with what they're doing that's impacted by the public and charitable work and healthcare, that the demand on your time is got to be ever increasing. So, Chris, can you share with us a little bit about how you're balancing your personal and professional aspects of life while maintaining your leadership responsibilities at your organization?
Yeah, for sure. I won't sit here and say it was easy, right? I am a mom of 3 young children. I have an amazing support structure behind me to help support my decisions for my career. I think the one tip that I give to anyone as you're trying to balance your leadership aspirations and the scope of being a security leader is you have to have that circle of support, right? It's support not only at work, support at home, in the community, and really trying to make sure that you focus on building your leadership team so that they are empowered to make certain decisions and so you can lift them up so that you can step back to have a better balance between your work and your personal. I actually don't like to say work-life balance. I always say it's work-life management because there's never a 50-50 balance between the significant jobs that we have to do for organizations as well as back at home. So there's never an easy equation to it, but I think the family support structure that you have is equally critical for you to be successful in leading your teams back in the organization.
Thank you. I like that work-life management. And we were having a conversation recently. Richard posted about the difference between Facebook and LinkedIn, but the component of bringing your personal life into your work life. So I'm going to use that hashtag work-life management through the holidays. Christina, can you, as I continue to reach out to you and ask you to come to events and get together and continue, tell us also how you manage that work-life management.
So for me, it's more about work-life prioritization, right? When I'm at work, I'm focused. I'm focused on the task at hand, on what we need to accomplish. When I'm at home, I'm focused on the task at hand. Obviously, if there's an issue, I'm reachable, of course. But it's about prioritization, right? It's always been that way. I too have 3 children, not that young, but they're still young, and so it's always been juggling and prioritizing, and splitting myself into multiple pieces, right? Like Teresa, I do have my husband is fantastic. He is the support system. We don't really have family that lives near. So it's just about him and I kind of juggling. And if I need to go to an event after work, then he knows, and dinner's kind of pre-prepped in advance, and we just figure it out. So it's just about communicating, which I think is part of just leadership, right? You're a leader at home, but you're also a leader at the office, in other areas of your life. So yeah, for me, it's difficult. It's really hard, and some days are harder than others. But and I won't lie. Like early when my kids were younger, I didn't necessarily chase. Like I kind of had to sunset my ambition for a little bit and say, well, that'll come later. I need to really focus on my family and what my family needs. And once I felt that, we were in a better place from a family perspective, then I was able to pick up that mantle and run again, right? Behind some of my goals and objectives. So yeah, prioritization. So
So I'd like to say I did the same prioritization, but I still wake up every morning and I look in the mirror and I don't have to deal with the same problems that you can deal with. So Maggie, if I could flip this script a little bit, can you talk to me about some of the unique challenges you faced as a woman in cybersecurity leadership and how you've overcome them?
Being taken seriously. I am kind of still surprised when I go to events or you're in a board meeting or even just one-on-one in meetings. And while I do appreciate, I'm seeing a lot more men get interested. and forgive me because I really struggle with this topic because I see how we keep separating men with women when I like to see everybody as a unit, but I fully understand why we need to talk about this. There's a lack of being taken seriously, perhaps from a technical standpoint, but it's interesting because I had a conversation with a fellow CEO last week, and we were talking about the differences of how men and women operate in business, and he said, men are really cutthroat. And it's brutal out there for us. He goes, whereas women really want to collaborate more and get things done. And I said, I agree to a certain aspect. I said, but I see a lot of women being really cutthroat in business, and I think that's because we were raised to compete against one another. And I want to break that. And so I think that the being taken seriously is probably the biggest challenge. And I love seeing women, and especially the two beside me on this call. I think it's phenomenal what you're able to accomplish, and just holding your own. And when we start having men asking us for some mentorship, or hey, what do you think about this? How did I sound there? Could you review this? What do you think? I would like to see more of that type of participation. Because I feel a lot of times we're going to the male leaders and looking for mentorship, and maybe we need a little bit of a flip of a switch to turn that around.
Thank you,
I
man.
don't believe in mentorship. I don't have formal mentors, right? I believe in cultivating relationships, right? Like I've been able to cultivate a great relationship with Rob. He's introduced me to his, network of CIOs and CEOs and CISOs. And so like it's not necessarily a formal mentorship, but I agree with your point, Maggie. I've had the same struggles and continue to have, frankly, a lot of those struggles. The thing with me now is that because I'm, more mature, more seasoned, it no longer impacts me, because the reality is that a lot men who are insecure, or just people in general who are insecure, will show that, right, by their reactions and by not taking you seriously. And the people, men and women and non-binary folks who are secure, you're not going to have that problem with them, right? And so that's what I see now. And like once you see it, you can't unsee it. If you are pushing back in a non kind of professional fashion, I know that it's that you're insecure of my background and experience. And so a lot of times, when I get on vendor calls or I get on meeting calls, the first thing that these folks do is they check my LinkedIn profile, right? Because they can't believe, my background and my experience. But then I come with like, I'm confident, right? So I know that I know what I have. And I'm okay with saying like, oh, I'm not familiar with this technology. Can you talk about it? But I think that's one thing that I had to learn the hard way, the confidence, right? Because you will be challenged from a technical perspective, from whatever perspective, you're going to be challenged, and your knowledge is going to be challenged. And unfortunately, I don't want to say that we need to get used to it, but it's part of the process, right? So we just need to be able to kind of hold our own, stand on our own 2 feet, and be confident with our, with our experience and what we know and what we bring to the table.
Oh, yes, please.
I love this topic too. I think I am a firm believer that if you can find a mentor that you trust, that you inspire to be eventually, whether it's male or female, it can go a very long way. And I think we use the word mentorship loosely, but it's really you're seeking an individual of your circle of trust to share some and to be vulnerable. Because I feel that as you move in your career up the chain, it gets really lonely. There's certain people that you can share some of the details and challenges that you're having with without judgment or without any concern, and just really getting raw feedback on their experiences, on how they navigate through a situation. And you can decide if you want to take that on or not, or just it's like a learning experience for me. My current mentor now is a female, but I've had a mentor before that was a male, and it is a very open dialogue that I have with them. And some individuals may think this is different, but like my mentor right now is my direct leader. So it may be viewed as an opportunity for coaching and developing and mentorship, right? But that individual is someone that I feel very safe sharing my vulnerabilities with. And the feedback that she gives me Most of them I do take them on, and some of them I improvise based on my leadership style and based on my aspirations to the next level. So but I think it's finding the right one is very critical. And you don't have to be stuck with the same mentor. You can go and, like to your point, Christina, build relationships with other colleagues and peers, and then seek that mentorship and friendship with them, and then move on. And it doesn't have to be just one mentor. It could be multiple mentors, depending on what your aspirations are for your career. And it could be for personal and for work, right? So I think that would be, I think building that circle of, I think someone had told me it was your own personal board of advisors. Right? We'll go with that one.
I like that better than like your personal board of advisors versus like mentors, because I think that, you know, in your case, Teresa, you're super lucky, right? That you have that, or that you've been able to, you know, come across fantastic leaders that also serve as your mentors. I think in a lot of situations, many of us do not have that, right? Or have not been lucky enough to find that. So we have to find it externally, or maybe, you know, within another organization, which is fantastic. And maybe it's not formal, it's a little bit more informal, right? And maybe you do talk about it and are vulnerable, but I see that as more like cultivating the relationship, building like almost like a friendship. Whereas when I think about formal mentorship, it seems so like black and white to me. It seems so like structured and rigid. I do believe in sponsorship.
Yeah.
It could look different. It could look different depending on your personal situation. I think the most important thing is to not get stuck trying to look for a mentor, right? Do your own thing, trust your own gut, build your own strategy. You don't need validation, and you don't need advice from anyone. You don't need 15 voices trying to tell you what to do, which direction. You can make a mistake, right? You just don't do it in production. Hopefully not, but you know, you should be okay with making a mistake and learning from that mistake. And yes, talking to your board of advisors about it. But I think a lot of us it happened to me. You know, I got stuck on like, well, I don't have a mentor. Does that mean I'm not going to be successful? And it's like, no, you can actually find inspiration and mentorship in other areas of your life, in books, in, you know, random conversations, and, you know, webinars, events like SIM. So I think that we sometimes take this word of mentorship too like literally. So
I do think, and this is a great conversation, and we can have this topic going over. I think there is a balance. You can have informal mentorship, formal mentorship. The accountability component around formalizing your mentorship is important, but the peer mentorship that you get every day, and you know, I'm blessed enough to have a wonderful network that keeps me accountable, keeps me growing, keeps pushing me, and picks me up when I'm down, and that's informal as well. You can argue either camp. The critical component here is you know, if there's something you think you could do alone, remember you have a belly button for a reason. And whether you're a woman striving for acceptance or being taken seriously, or a man who has gotten that and is not giving your time, no one should have to go through anything alone. And you should be cerebral enough to realize what's going on around you. And if someone needs a hand, extend it. And if they don't, wait until they do. And the awareness is what's important. And I'm sure that we've all been touched by other lives. And I don't want to spend too much time on mentorship, but if there's anybody that you guys want to give a shout out to, I mean, I've had mentors my entire career, both informal and formal. But Maggie, anybody you want to give a quick shout out to, a mentor or something throughout your career?
Oh, you're on the spot. I have about 5 to 6, and they're all from family to professional. First and foremost, my grandfather, God rest his soul, he just passed away in September. Didn't know a thing about technology. Died at 88. One of the most amazing men, and I'm just so privileged to be his granddaughter. Robert Heath is phenomenal. He's a former Marine and a lawyer, and very different perspective. You yourself, Rob, Caesar Nader. Oh my gosh, there's so many others I'm forgetting. Cass Henry, 𝗞𝗲𝘆 𝗜𝗍𝘆, Dr. Henry. I'm going to regret not mentioning right now, but thank you so much to all of you, because if it weren't for you, my dad, my mom, wow, I would not be here without these people, truly.
So I'll move on from this topic. I have some on top, but I would go on top of line, and like I go back to not having enough time, and we have to make more time. But Christina, one of my mentors, who's helping me, my inspiration for writing my first book, because she has 2 that's been great. And you know, as much as you give, you take back from everyone in your life. So Christina, I do appreciate you as well. So,
likewise, Robert, thank you.
I do want to jump into, and I don't want to make this all about women in technology, but I do say that if anybody ever has a problem in their role and not treated fairly, call me, and me and my network will do our best to find you where you need to go. But this is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and I am curious, and with the three of you very different, and you're doing very different things. I'm going to start with you, Teresa, and one of my first roles at Montefiore Medical Center ended up at Texas Children's Hospital, right? And I had to do some work there, but I didn't have the responsibility you do. Can you take us through, especially in the healthcare sector, where you don't get days off? The Giants have an off season, right? We might have weekends. You are truly, literally 24/7, and your patients have parents and everyone complaining. Can you take me through a little bit of your day in the life and the problems you face as a cybersecurity and IT professional in healthcare?
Yeah, well, I guess I wouldn't call them challenges, but Texas Children's is the largest pediatric hospital in the U.S. And there's a lot of babies and kids and women that depend on us, like you said, 24/7. We have a very large system, and the good news is our system was designed with a centralized technology platform, meaning it's not disparate. We don't grow from an M&A standpoint. So our systems are shared across all of our 22,000 workforce members, our physicians, and our nurses. So that really helps us with, from a security lens, having good visibility of what's going on within our system. And it allows us to rapidly respond to any types of threats or risks that we may see within our environment or that we may see with third parties. I think the biggest challenge that we have, and I don't think it's just healthcare specific, it's across industries, is training awareness around cybersecurity practices. Our doctors and nurses are so busy, they're focused on the patients because that's their job. And that also leaves them in a more vulnerable state, I feel, when they get that MFA push or when they get that email that's talking about a child's life from a parent, or could be some research grants. So we always talk about humans being the weakest link. So we have made significant investments over the past 6 years that I've been here at Texas Children's, and we started a little bit before too, on how do we truly flip and change the human behaviors of security vigilance. And I know it's a topic that all CISOs have as part of their program, but finding very creative ways to talk about cybersecurity to non-technical individuals, I think is an art, right? And earlier when I opened up and I said, you don't necessarily have to have a computer science degree or a cybersecurity degree to play a role in a cybersecurity program at an organization. It's because this is more creative marketing, storytelling. How do you simulate phishing exercises with nursing and not get them upset when they click on it and it says, uh-oh, you're a victim. Now you have to take this training. You have to be very delicate about the conversation and translate the messaging of why we're focused on changing human behavior and not just wasting time. Because you tie it back to the mission, right? Cybersecurity organizations and groups don't exist just to buy technology and talk about the technology conversation and network segmentation. The reason that we're doing what we're doing is because we want to make sure our nurses, our care team, and our doctors can continue to take care for that patient on the bed. That's it, right? So if you can talk about why it's important to practice, phishing simulation, why is it important to practice business email compromise simulation? It's because we won't want you to accidentally take an action and then it would impact the connectivity and digital experiences for the entire hospital. That's all it takes is one, right? And it depends on the scenario and it depends on the attack method. It could be very detrimental for the entire hospital. So, again, when I talk about mission and operations, that healthcare is a critical infrastructure. It is impactful for patient lives and patient care. So we definitely don't take cybersecurity training and awareness lightly here at Texas Children's.
Thank you, Teresa. And I want to come back to that phishing and threat stuff in a few minutes, and we talk about maybe the future cyber and emerging trends and stuff. But I want to hear from both Christina and Maggie on here. Christina, how about you? Any day in the life in cyber, especially working for a professional sport team?
Yeah. So yes. Oh my God. Where do I begin? I could talk about this topic for days, but so while folks think that we have an off season, we're actually also like 12 months out of the year. Our off season, in terms of the players not playing and you're not watching football on TV, means that we have to do a lot of work in the back end, right? So that's when we upgrade systems, deploy any changes that could impact our infrastructure, change out workstations, change out whatever, right? Any type of technology upgrades, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a lot going on at the same time. To Teresa's point, security awareness and training is a critical element of any cybersecurity program. But whenever I think about that, and to your point as well, I think you have to be super creative. It's not really about the technology piece. The technology piece is easy, right? That's like the easiest part, implementing a new tech stack. The hardest part is getting people to care about it. And also getting it to resonate with people. So what I've done in that area is that I've kind of built out relationships with the organizations, right? I talk to folks, on the ground. I go to the cafeteria, like I'm, shaking hands and kissing babies. But the reason why is because I want to understand what they understand and what questions they have. And then I relate that back to what I put out in terms of any type of training or newsletters. I customize collateral, right, for the organization. And I also talk about their personal digital security. So I don't always make it about the business, because we already distribute a lot of content in terms of business email compromise and keep making sure that the organization is safe. But I also want them to understand on a personal level, and relate that back to why it matters at work, right? So why does it matter at home? Why does it matter at work? And the way that I do that is by also distributing and sharing content focused on their digital security, their personal digital security, right? And I think that just cultivates an organization, like a culture of cybersecurity awareness and just awareness, right? I think because of that, people are more aware and more responsive to these business email compromise emails, right? Can it still happen? Of course. And that's why we need to have these protections on the back end. Just layers, right? We need to have additional layers of security. So for me, I personally don't think that humans are the weakest link. I think that they could be the strongest link, because, if I can help 300 folks in a department understand the importance of cybersecurity for business and personal, then I almost have 300 little mini analysts helping me out, right? Reporting things to me, reporting things to the IT team. So I kind of see it as a benefit. And I just see it as an opportunity to help educate people. Plus they can also, be safe at home, right? Or in their personal lives. So, but it's tough.
It's a tough industry. We're going to get back to this question in a second, but Maggie, how about you? And I know you've done some DoD work and multiple industries. Tell me a little about your work with cyber.
One of the biggest things that I enjoy doing that I cannot stress enough would be the outreach and the events. So for instance, with the 𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏 Foundation, we have 12 large events every year. Our last one that we just had last week was a Capture the Flag event. We had hackers from 18 to seasoned professionals, military professionals going head to head against one another. But when you're looking at cyber hygiene and critical infrastructure and zero trust and these types of things, the human element, in my opinion, and I totally agree with what you said, Christina, but I think there's a caveat to that. You said analysts. I like to refer to we're building warriors. We're building soldiers, and we have to do that through education. And when they feel confident that they're going to be able to see an attack when it's coming, now you're talking close to 100% secure. But that changes on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis, right? So I think the education piece is something I'm super passionate about. Cyberbytes does a great job of that. But more importantly, you're educating your teams, you're educating your loved ones, you're educating yourself, staying up to date on those certifications or just the latest case studies, things that are happening across the world with other organizations. And as geeky as this sounds, and my techies will appreciate this, we love reading about that stuff. But what about the people that don't like technology? How do we make it fun for them? How do we make them engage? And that's where the innovation comes in. And I think that's where we have to get creative as leaders. Just like you're raising a child, one kid could be very different from the other with what their hobbies are, what their interests are. Okay, well, how do we cater to each individual or each department or each company in our portfolios? So that's what I have to say.
Thanks, Maggie. John, I wonder if we could bring up Laura's comment back up here, because I think that might segue to a next question. But Laura, it's a great comment and talking here about the human element and bringing back to Teresa's comment about phishing and what happens there. And John, Frank, and I were talking at the Institute yesterday about the future of cyber, and recently in the past few months, or I don't know exactly how long ago, people are getting phished now and then. AI is producing video images of CEOs and their teams and trying to fool people in multiple ways. But I'm looking to you guys. Do you spend time talking about what and I know education and awareness on phishing attempt and stuff like that is important. But what happens? What does the future of cyber landscape look like, and how do you and your teams stay on point and see what's relevant that you need to pay attention to? With this is probably the fastest growing technology we have here. So, Maggie, do you mind going to that one first?
So I'm sorry, could you repeat that just a little bit different so I fully understand?
So how do you stay relevant on topic and on the future growth of cyber and what trends do you see that think we need to worry about on the future of cybersecurity?
I personally like conversational aspect of that. What I mean is I learn more by going out and networking or talking with top leaders. And I say that from a humanistic standpoint and a behavioral standpoint, especially when we start talking AI and some of the things that you just mentioned, than I do necessarily books or training. And you need both. You absolutely need both. So I think it's a matter of us hearing about one another's issues and challenges. And I always find that when people can at least explain without giving some confidential information away what happened and have that vulnerability in conversation, that's where the meat potatoes comes with some of the things that you just were describing. So I think that it all comes together. It's all pieced out together. But me personally, especially if I'm trying to grow a company or get them ready for acquisition or get them, these top investors that they're looking for, I have to hear about what issues there have been challenge-wise. How much money did you lose? What, really bare your soul in a way to those challenges so that we can get the word out there and be protected.
Thank you, Maggie. Teresa, how about you? Do you and your team stay on top of cyber trends and talk about future cyber issues?
Yeah, so the leaders within cybersecurity and also their thought team, and not just in cybersecurity, I think across all of IT, we're all ears up on new emerging trends and threats, targeted not just to healthcare, but targeted sometimes to even the technology stack that they run. But I do agree with Maggie. In my level, I get much of my insights from my circle of community, right? That it's not just the networking events that I meet new security leaders or new technology leaders across industries, but it's also for healthcare. We have our own listserv in our forums of all the CISOs and CIOs across all children's hospitals, across all hospitals in the Texas Medical Center. And it is a very open dialogue on what we're seeing, what our SOC teams are seeing, what partners are telling us. I mean, I'll give a really good example is when the MGM casino issue happened and they targeted their help desk, we start immediately reaching out to all of our peers and colleagues and say, what are you doing for impersonation attempts to the help desk? What are you doing to help verify identity? Because with dark web, dark audio videos right now, you can make a male sound like a female. You can make a female sound like a 20-year-old. And social media is out there, right? You can find a lot of their personal identifiable information to validate. So that's just an example of how we as security leaders have to try to stay ahead of the attackers 10 steps ahead. And sometimes we're not able to because they're pretty sophisticated. So if you keep your network close, have ongoing engagement conversations, pay attention to articles, pay attention to what's happening across the industries. Like, if you talk about, healthcare being the number one of the largest, the number one industry that's being attacked right now, I need to make sure I have a connection point to all of my healthcare leader clients. But it's not just healthcare, because technology industries are being attacked, financial industries as well. So you can get really good nuggets of information from security leaders across all industries to help then bring back in-house to ask our teams the right question on what are we doing to mitigating this risk that we have not seen yet, but it could come down the pipe for us.
Thank you, Teresa. Christina, how about you?
So for me, everything that both Teresa and Maggie mentioned, in terms of, talking to other CIOs and CISOs and technology leaders, but I'm also a techie at heart. So I'm into reading like threat intel feeds. We get like a threat intel from the NFL. I also look at external feeds. I'm in a lot of like, not distribution lists, but like private red teamer chats and blue teamer chats. I want to hear from, on both sides. In terms of what are we seeing, what are folks seeing in terms of IOCs? And then I want to play around with it, right? I want to sandbox things. I want to try to break AI prompts, right? Like I need to get hands-on because I feel like you can read as much as you like to read and you can get like a TLDR, but I don't think you're going to understand, and you may not need to understand what the issue is or how to mitigate an issue. So I dive in, right? Not everybody does that. I enjoy doing it. It could be a little bit dry for folks, or it could be too in the weeds for some folks, and that's fine. Everybody has their approach, but I like to understand, like, what are we dealing with? What I'm seeing a lot, obviously, everyone has mentioned AI security or the lack thereof. I'm also seeing a lot, obviously, with just critical infrastructure in general, right? And kind of like how we're not necessarily paying attention. And so, yeah, and how everything is related. So I think it's a combination. But I will say that there's so much that there's no way to get a grip of everything. You have to kind of try to focus on what you need to focus on, relay it back to your industry, maybe deep dive on your industry, things that can impact your industry, and maybe TLDR on things that are impacting other industries. But there are only 24 hours in a day, and you need to sleep for at least 8. So you have to like keep that in mind. But so I think it's a combination of all of the above.
I think we've all had days where we weren't sleeping for 8 hours. I'm sorry.
Just one thing I wanted to add to that I think works pretty well is the cybersecurity team is a set size. And yes, it can grow based on the demands that you have and based on new threats and what the board will invest in growing your team. But if we cannot keep staying abreast on cybersecurity concerns only to cybersecurity teams and cybersecurity leaders, I think it is foolish of us to think that we can continue functioning that way in the world that we're kind of going into right now. So setting the example, at least within IT first, is everyone in technology in the IT organization or IS organization is responsible for staying abreast on cybersecurity threats, because they're all managing technology. It opens the front door for threat actors to gain access into your critical assets and your critical environment or whatnot. So I think one of the things that we did at Texas Children's is we made that very clear within IS. We even have goals within our annual performance measuring around cybersecurity strategy, cybersecurity, security hygiene for our teams in infrastructure, networking, even our PMO team. New technology comes out. Are you going through the gates to make sure it's not vulnerable? It has a risk assessment. So everyone can play a part in keeping your environment secure, and especially everyone in IT. And then the boundaries step out as well as you market and tell the story of why it's important for everyone.
And I have one more thing to say. I'm sorry, Rob.
No.
We're really digging in with our governance on what our outside vendors are doing. And some of those conversations can be difficult because sometimes you got a contract on the line, and people, especially in the government sector, you have requirements you have to meet. And so I think something others need to take into consideration is we're at a deficit in cybersecurity professionals in the millions. We are overworked. We are exhausted. And I think that a lot of people get really up in arms too easily in this industry. They get really stressed out just because we're exhausted. So Just wanted to tie that in. The governance piece is going to be critical to what we've talked about here today as well.
Absolutely. It is an everybody problem. And I always said we're data stewards, not data owners. We're protecting everybody else's data, and it's our responsibility or accountability to manage it, but it's everybody's responsibility to make sure that it's protected. So with that, I want to make sure we save enough time to see where else you guys are working on. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask you guys, if you had to give people advice that are looking to pursue, especially being a woman in cyber, but at least pursuing cybersecurity as a career, what advice could you give some of our future cybersecurity or IT leaders? And Christina, I'd like to start with you on this one.
Oh, that's a difficult one. I think to Maggie's point, some of us are exhausted. Some days are a little bit more exhausting than other days. I mean, I think one thing that I would say is, seek out folks in the industry that maybe you followed, folks like Teresa, folks like Maggie, folks like myself, even folks like you, Robert, like seek out and actually don't be afraid to have a real conversation. A lot of times people like to make it sound all like, roses and sunshine, and that's not the case. For anyone that ever wants to reach out to me, I am not going to make it about roses and sunshine. I'm going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I think one advice that I would have is do not be discouraged, because it's tough, especially as of late, it is tough. And it counters everything in terms of like the millions of people that we supposedly were in deficit of. It seems like no one is hiring, at least not entry level. Entry level roles are very difficult to come across. And so it's very, very tough for people that are trying to break into the industry. I like to talk to, when I help folks, I give more of a personalized approach. I try to understand, their background, where they're coming from, what skills can kind of cross over into cyber. And then I give them little like hacks, if you will, in terms of how to break in, right? And it may not be traditional, because it's a little bit discouraging, if I'm going to be honest with you, right now, to get, for folks coming in. So, I just try to be creative. I help them. So I don't like to make give general advice, because I feel like it's cliche. We've heard it before. It's not helping folks. I like to be a little bit more tactical, and I like to personalize. So if anybody has any questions, you can always reach out to me directly, and I will, time permitting, I will help depending on your specific skill set, background, and where you would like to be.
Thank you, Christina. And how can people find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can just go to my website, ChristinaMurillo.com.
Thank you, Christina. So Teresa, how about you?
I do agree with what Christina said. So the only thing I would add is with all that you've heard from Christina, it is a tough field. It is time consuming. You're accountable for, the availability of your entire organization. So it is not for one that has thin skin. You have to have thick skin. You have to have grit. You wake up every day and you're going to go in and lead strong teams to do what we have to do best and continue to develop and coach them. I would say, because of all that, it is very important that if you want to break into cybersecurity, you make sure you find an organization that you are 100% on board with the mission. It's very difficult to get up out of bed from work and then do what Christina just said, and it is long. There's a lot of burnout, right? But you don't align with the mission. You're not going to bring your best self to work every day, open to learn and address the challenges head on, because that is our role as cybersecurity leaders and professionals. You are expected to show up to work every day 100% or more, and you can't do that consistently unless you really appreciate the mission and have pride for the organization that you work for.
Thanks, Teresa. How can people get in touch with you?
LinkedIn.
Thank you. So Maggie, how about you? Any advice for our future female leaders in cybersecurity?
Great answers, both from Christina And Teresa, grit for sure. You better be able to take a punch on the chin energetically and not even flinch. This industry is not for the weak. And as someone who broke into it because I just wanted it so bad because I knew I was meant to protect people. It's a passion of mine. It's almost like a creepy sickness. But lead with humility in everything that you're trying to learn. You do not know all the answers. And sometimes the leaders you're learning from don't know all of the answers. I personally volunteered with some of cybersecurity firms or nonprofits, knowing that they didn't necessarily have an opening, but I was hell-bent on somehow showing them that I had the grit and the fortitude to learn. Starting out with reading books literally like Cybersecurity for Dummies. You know, there are no fine blueprints that are the right thing. I think it's about making a blueprint and a pathway for yourself that invigorates you and that keeps you focused and that you're excited about. This is a creative process, you know, so enjoy it and have fun. But I think also I would say internships are huge. I have seen a lot of people, especially this year with the 𝗪𝗞𝗆𝗆 Foundation, that went in as interns or volunteers with our summer camps that ultimately got offers at the end of that from cybersecurity organizations or even the government. We had one that even got an offer from the Secret Service. So we've seen a lot of really cool things happen. And these people were, most of them, just off the street. So the miracle is real if you want it. I'll just say that.
Thanks, man.
I was going to say the one thing I will add is that, you know, cybersecurity is like such a huge domain, right? I like to say it's like if you pull the roots, if you pull a tree out of the roots and flip it over, all of the branches and the leaves are like different areas within cyber. I like to advise folks to really think about which area you are most interested in exploring deeply, right? Because there's like, if you're telling me you want to, I want to go and get into cybersecurity. What does that mean? Like, what do you want to do? What's your area of interest? Do you want to look at, you know, GRC? Do you want to look at security operations, incident response? So I think it's important for folks that are new to the industry to get very clear, you know, about which specific area they want to start with. You can always branch off of that and explore more, you know, additional areas. But if you're starting, you can't start everywhere, right? So figure out which area you're most interested in and then start there, start exploring, learning, reading, consuming, talking about it, testing, playing around with the technologies if that's required. And then you can branch off once you get your first opportunity.
I think, Christina, you made an excellent point there. Is because most of the folks that want to break in may not understand the intricacies of what's part of a cybersecurity team. So if they have great marketing experience, great presentation experience, right? They can start in security awareness training. If they're really good with controls and internal audit and have no computer science degree and no CISSP certification, they can start in GRC. So there's a lot of opportunities, I feel, and you don't have to have the template type resume to be successful and break into cybersecurity. That's a great point.
So I think we covered a lot of great stuff today, and there was a comment in the chat that I just want to call on one part. It said collaborating with cross-functional teams is essential to building a secure environment. And I think, and to just summarize what you guys said, I don't want to miss out, that we can't do it alone. And this is, I think, one of the most rapid growing and scaling areas of technology and industries per se. And without amazing people like you and great shows like this, but amazing people like you that people can connect with and collaborate with and learn from, it'd be hard for anybody to be successful in this. And it's impossible to know everything about cybersecurity and with all the compliance that goes out and the bad actors they're not worrying about what to do with AI. They're saying, what can't we do with AI? And hit us every day long. So I want to thank you not only for doing the show today, but for protecting you and yours and educating the rest of us on protecting us every day. So I want to thank you guys for participating today, everybody for watching, and look forward to our upcoming shows, and keep safe during Cybersecurity Awareness Month and every month in between. So thank everybody for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining Leading in the Digital Era, hosted by Robert Field. Look for more Leading in the Digital Era presented by the Institute for Digital Transformation Coming to a LinkedIn Live session soon. Can't join Robert for the live session? You can catch the replay anytime on our YouTube channel.